Hey, so welcome everybody. This is so exciting. And this is like, wow, we've got 28 people here. My name's Jan. I'm going to be the host for Orion. And we got some people who keep on joining and then they kind of lose connection and they kind of jump out. So okay. So my name is Jan. I am a shamanic practitioner and teacher. I'm also one of the organizers for the Faery and Human Relations Congress, which is where I met Orion Foxwood. He's been a presenter there for a number of years, I think like 6 years altogether. And so I want to thank the Faery Congress, as we call it. That's a gathering in person and online. It's kind of turned into a school. It's like, how do we work with nature intelligences? So it's a gathering of witches and shamans and Celtic fairy people and deep ecologists. That's what we do. And I'll put a lot of these links in the chat, and then later when you get an email. I also want to thank the Unnamed Path, and we've got Sawyer here. And I think Sawyer, are you here?
I'm here.
Did you do the graphics?
That was something that Adam actually worked on.
It was so funny because I said, so the Unnamed Path is something that should be on every queer radar, and it's a spiritual tradition bringing together shamanism, energy work, death walking, and divination for men who love men. And I called them up saying, hey, I've got this idea, and they just kind of took and ran with it. So they did the graphics, they did a lot of the outreach. So I'm going to put that that link in there too. So queer call to action. I just have to, first of all, I'm overjoyed that all of you were here. And this was based on a dream. So I'm talking to Orion. We're throwing ideas around. I have a dream that night, which was very specific. It's like you're gonna host a 2-hour presentation by Orion. We're gonna call it a queer call to action. We're gonna raise money for Orion. He's got some medical bills. And then we're gonna record it, and we're going to have it accessible to at-risk queer youth. And then this is really interesting. Then the dream was like, and there's a kid in Alabama who, if he reads this, you have a chance of really altering the trajectory of his life. So there are some kids that need to hear this. So it's going to be recorded. I am going in for surgery on Wednesday. I'm going to need some help with like video editing and distribution of this so that we can get this, because this is not just a presentation, this is kind of like a transmission to how do we support our youth, our queer youth, that they can step out in the world and know that they are sacred, because this is rough out there. We're dealing with some really intense statistics on suicides, and this is not good. They need some help. So we're stepping up as queer elders to support our queer youth. So if anybody has any suggestions, I'm going to put my contact information in there. Let's do this. I'm also working, and I just wanted to say this, is Thorn here? Okay. I'm testing out a closed captioning, and it doesn't seem like it's working. So, okay.
That's a lot of work.
So Orion Foxwood, I know some of you are not familiar with him. I consider Orion to be a national treasure, and so does NPR. He was recently interviewed by NPR as like, this is an American voice. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence have made him a saint. And you can read a lot about Orion and kind of the bio. But one thing that's really important is that I'm letting some more people in. He grew up with the second sight. That means he can see through the veil in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. So this is an area where the Native American, African American, European American folk traditions came together. And you don't hear a lot about this. You don't hear about this at all. This is a really rich American folk tradition that's coming forward. And of course, Spirit would put a queer witch in the middle of this to like just really turn the heat up. I think that's it. If anybody has, you feel free to message me, and I'm going to pass it on to Orion.
Well, I think every pore on my skin is swelling at the moment, because I'm just sitting here, and I'd like y'all to join with me in this. Look at the faces on here, and imagine the stories that have shaped faces. The journey to become an actualized queer person is a journey fraught with interesting conflict, pressure. And I've never met a diamond that didn't form without pressure. Look at these diamonds. So I was sitting here, I couldn't hardly really say much because, and which is for me is odd, because I just looked up and I kept seeing all the stories that brought us here, right? Could we have ever dreamed that we'd have gay marriage or same-sex marriage? Finally, love matters. Love matters. Yet we have so far yet to go. The core to this workshop, and I thank you all so much because I know you've got lots of things you could be doing on a Saturday, other than hanging out with this bald guy with a weird beard. But you're here with me, and I'm very grateful. This is the message, the everything about this workshop is very near and dear to my heart. To my queer heart. I want to read something to you. A dear friend of mine wrote a book called The Divine Androgyne. It's a wonderful book. And I wrote a poem for it. And I'd like you to maybe just close your eyes a second and take in what the poem is saying. And it's called The Stars Became the YOU Universe. What is this starlit flower blossoming within my brain, rooted in the dust of a fallen tower, unfurling, fragrant, and unstained? What is this luminous presence, old when the stars were born? The whispering wisdom of a dreamer, a rose without a thorn. Sweet fragrance of the knowing of stars that came to earth, awakening a glee as I became we and guilt melts into mirth. For the sake of love, we divided to journey to places unknown. For the sake of radiance embodied, we've walked this path of bone, becoming the art of the eternal and the universe with human feet, extending the reach of the river of stars, seeing radiance in all we meet. The flowering light ignites me as my soul cage falls apart. For now the love that made me consumes me in its heart. The life we live and the gifts we give that births what we call true are manifest as cursed or blessed, and words are reality's glue. A new age is upon us. It's awakening from within. It will not hide or fools abide or be shamed or mocked as sin. The child of promise centered in all will not be shackled down. It will not hide, nor fools abide, nor be shamed. I think I said sin twice, or mocked as sin. The child of promise, centered in all, will not be shackled down. It's odd, it's queer, it's far, it's near. Doesn't that sound Dr. Seussish? And it offers a sovereign crown. The one that's two, that's me and you, is ungluing so we may heal. Sweet fragranced flower at the center of the whirling wheel. And time and mind will help us find the weed that sits in peace, as the Holy Child will reconcile and grant you final release. To be the love that made you and is making you all the time. Become the life within you, the sacred androgyne. Now, this was written, actually, it was written as a foreword for the book, and I tore it up and I crumbled it up and I rewrote it and I rewrote it. And I want to say some things about the poem and about this concept of a call to action and how that is embedded in the greater call that's going on ecologically, globally. In fact, maybe I'll start there and come back to the poem. In about the mid-1800s, there was a movement beginning all over the globe. And it showed up as theosophy, and the Rosicrucianism became more popular, the Golden Dawn, an interest in all things magical, but more importantly, ecological. What was happening was the tree of humanity was being shaken. The ancestors, because you see, we are all boats of flesh on a river of blood, and our ancestors are riding with us. There ultimately is no death, only transition of form into unfamiliar shapes, into the essence that we were when the universe was born. And we were all there. You know, there's no new energy. I saw you and I saw you. It sounds like the Wizard of Oz. And you were there, and you were there, and you were there. And there was a sounding call of sorts that started to happen. And many mystics were aware of it. Eliphas Levi wrote stuff. There's movements literally all over the globe, a movement towards understanding the fairy tradition, a movement towards looking at the old folk beliefs and old pagan beliefs. And what that really was an eco-spiritual, co-creative call to action. Now, I promise this will all fit together in terms of queerdom. We are in the middle of an ecological crisis. And we have much that we're going to have to change. You have no idea, and I hope you will at the end of this workshop, how big your role is in this. Now, some years ago, I met a wonderful spirit who I've worked with for years, an ancient fairy being. Those who know me most out in the world out there, I teach Faery Seership, which is a folkloric practice. The old fairy healers. It's a shamanic practice, a Western and Northern European, I wouldn't say mystical tradition, a folkloric tradition, working with what we might think of as the angels in the land. So you'll hear me refer to an ancient being named Bree, my spirit wife. The heart of my, as I drop my phone there, the heart of my work. She said that as we look at our statistics, as we look at ecology and the reports on ozone depletion and global warming, guys, we are at the beginning of an extinction event, and that's quite real. And I pray to the Mother, Father, God, to the Great Spirit, to all that we hold most holy, that we can awaken in enough quality and quantity to make the changes that we need. It seems like COVID was a sort of a test run on how to do a global response, how to stay home and let nature catch its breath, and how to walk gentler on the earth. Now, in the co-creative call, or I should say, what is the co-creative? But the co-creative call was what I call that thing that shook the tree, that caused these movements towards eco-spirituality, feminism. Feminism, very, very important. You know, I grew up on a saying, you cannot you cannot curse the roots and bless the fruits. And last I checked, we all were born drinking the blood of our mothers for 9 months. I always say 8 months because I'm a preemie. I keep forgetting there's that extra month. To come into this world. And the feminist movement, and I'm sure we have some feminists on here, I'm one, it was ultimately about the restoration of the feminine and the role of the feminine in our paradigm of living in life. We watched the feminist movement and the eco-spiritual movement that launched things like Wicca, like fairy tradition, like, well, not launched fairy tradition, brought it back out into the eye. People were suddenly feeling an urge to know, what is my place within this greater whole that we call life? And this co-creative call to action starts happening. And I guarantee you responded. Whether it was in eco-spiritual practices or whether it was in your queerness. I promise you, it'll make sense in a little bit. So way back, I'm trying to think if I had hair then. I think I had a little bit of hair and large reptiles were roaming the land. It was so long ago. I would be going to this gathering in San Jose, or Pantheon, and I'd go there and I'd go speak, and I do visionary work to find out, how can I serve my people? What message can I bring? And that's where I met a lot of the unnamed path folks. Love you, love you. I love your founder, Eddie was a dear friend. But I would go and I would do visionary work to find what's the most appropriate, relevant message that I can bring. How can I be an agent of positive change? And I would go and I would deliver these messages. And those of you who went to that event know that my workshops were really big. There was a lot of people that would come and it was really fitting for them. And that felt good. Well, what didn't feel good is I'd come with that message, that relevant message, and people felt pumped up. They felt fed, something they could work with. But then each year I'd come back and I would see people deflated again. This launched a journey that leads me to this moment. So I knew something was broken in the human spirit, because not only was I seeing it at this event, that people were perplexed, they were concerned, they were traumatized, and often not even knowing what it was that was vexing them. So I went to the divine being that I work with, that I'm married to, and said, Bree, her name's Bree, and I said, Bree, there is a wound in the heart of humanity. I've got to know what it is. I can no longer, as a seer, as a teacher, give a message that I know is only a band-aid. Knowing that it's not the fix. And as Martin Luther King said, half truth is a whole lie. And I said, I need to know what these core wounds are. I think y'all will recognize them when I start to talk about them. And what she said to me was, I cannot tell you. I have to show you inside of you. You have to discover the wound in you and journey towards the healing. The wisdom will come from that. But you may not survive. Most don't. Well, that was encouraging. That was a pick me up. But I felt that, I'd rather, if it killed me, I'd rather die an honest man than live with a faulty message. And here's what I discovered. And I want to share these with them. I call them the dampers. Dampers are, a damper on a wood stove, as any of you know, is how you kind of turn up the fire or turn down the fire because it regulates the air movement. So a damper on the soul's flame would be what increases its light or what decreases its light. And that's why I call these the dampers. And if you have a pen and paper, you might want to write these down because they're really important. There's 4: the illusion of isolation, the desire to possess, the resentment of change, and the desire for absolutes. And I'll say them again because really, ultimately, there's one core wound. The illusion of isolation is the core wound. The others grow from it. So it's the illusion of isolation, desire to possess, resentment of change, and desire for absolutes. Well, also a part of this quest was when I first moved up to Maryland, because I came from the Shenandoah Valley, and I moved up here, and my poor mama, she was so upset at me moving north. She said to me, she cried, she said, "You defected." I said, "Mama, you don't even know what that means." She says, "I know, but it's bad. Whatever it is, it's bad." Civil War was still alive in her. So when I moved up here, I was very angry. I was angry at men, which is really hard when you're gay. You know, angry at men for what women have had to endure. In fact, I left the church because I was a youth minister there. And I left it because I couldn't endure what I was watching in disrespect to women. How do we disrespect the very vessel through which our lives come? Regardless of whether the woman has a baby or not, she is the vessel of life. So I came up, and I was angry at white people. Now that an extra one, right? It's kind of hard when you're part white, right? And so because I grew up seeing racism, and I saw the KKK. My grandfather was actually lynched, and my mother and I found him. And these things carved my relationship with the Black community, and why I got involved in civil rights so deeply. But what I'm getting at is I wanted to find there's these problems in the world, the ecological stuff, the domestic violence, then the homophobia, transphobia, and a whole list of things. And I was very angry, and I wanted to point at something, right? Someone, you did it, the guys did it. Then it was the white guys did it. No, then it was, and here's what I found and how it feeds into those dampers. Humanity practically became a whole nother species. When those little hominids, those little monkeys with possibility, when they got their hands on, paws on fire, it changed everything. Sometimes I think that the concept in the Bible of the serpent coming down the tree and offering the apple was fire coming down was lightning coming down the axis mundi, the center post of the universe, and the fire is the apple. Because you see, with fire, our species changed so fast and it over specialized, and we got to be careful of that. Over specialization is the hallmark of a species extinction. It's not good to be so specialized that we need everything in nature, and nature doesn't need a lot from us. We want to get back to a place where we walk in the woods and the woods leans towards us, as opposed to goes, "Oh my God, here they come." Run, run, run. They might cut you down, shoot you, anything. So fire changed us. We could now migrate from the warm areas to the dark, to the cold. We could use that fire on a torch like a sword, searing through the night. We could fend off animals that would often otherwise kill us or harm us. We could smelt metal. That was magic. And we could cook our food. And in cooking our food, something happened. The wicked spirits that was killing our people, parasites, would be killed by the heat. But also the cooking of meat would release proteins that that little simian brain needed. And baby, did it grow. And we grew fast. And if you watch and track humanity's evolution since fire, fast, real fast. So how did we get to this illusion of isolation, this disconnect, where we say such things as going back to nature? I'm going back to, I used to laugh at that. I go to events and people talk about getting back to nature. And I said, so where did you go? Since everything is nature, right? Or the concept of throwing your trash away is another favorite of mine. We don't throw our trash away. We throw it out of sight and into convenience. The earth still has to deal with it. There, as we evolved with fire in our lives, we changed and changed quick, and we became so enamored with our nervous system and our thumb. Hey, it's pretty cool. And all the things, look around you in your room right now at the number of things that were connected to fire. It changed everything. And we grew so quickly that in the growing, we became more and more humanocentric. You ever notice when people have a cat or a dog, and the dog, and they want to brag on it and say it's, you know, really smart. My cat's really smart. My dog, well, everyone knows cats are smart. The cats will tell you this. But quite often when someone says, say the dog is smart, is because it acts human, right? Well, I don't know if that's an evolutionary jump for the dog, considering if you drop me and drop the dog into the middle of a forest, I guarantee that dog will do better than me in survival. They don't have beard dye there, and they don't have moisturizers, you know, so I wouldn't survive long. But what occurred was this rapid humanizing of our lives to the point where, I mean, we live in these homes with electricity, and which I love heat, I love air conditioning. It is a blessing, but it is a false environment. And it is a costly environment to create to the earth. And more, we found ourselves drifting away from a connection that was so important to our people, to our ancient people. They knew that observing our relationship with the great web of life that we live in was crucial to our survival. And they had ceremonies, and they had lore, and they had practices to keep us sensitized and synchronized with the rhythm of life itself. And many things drifted away. The seining of babies, an old name for the blessing of babies, and the rights of manhood, rights of womanhood, you know, seminarchs, monarchs, all the different rites that would mark the sacred passage and the relationship to our tribes and our relationship to the world that feeds us. And the illusion of isolation began to grow. And I think that, I don't know if I know any human that hasn't felt that sense that something's wrong. And I think we felt that way for a long time. And the thing that we've known that was wrong, we could feel ourselves drifting further and further away from an intuitive sense of our place within the world, human and other. You know, in fact, I challenge my students when I teach, when we talk about ancestors, honoring our ancestors, I always say, to those named and unnamed, known and unknown, seen and unseen, human and other. You know, and that I will pray for my ancestors caught in pain or woe, and for those exalted, blessed, and redeemed. I ask that they place my feet in right relationship with the directive of my spirit. Guide me as I move through life. If you don't think the ancestors are with you, honey, go get your mitochondria checked. They're swimming in you. So this thing that has fostered in humanity, and boy, did we suffer from a lot of that in our community as queer folk, and that is abandonment, fear, fury, and shame. Because in the illusion of isolation, and notice I say illusion, because the truth is we're made of the same stuff that everything else is made of, right? We, though we have our homes and they're lovely, we are not separate from nature. We have constructs that give us the ability to manipulate things like light and temperature and such things, for our comfort and our survival, and it's wonderful. But when it all comes down to it, have a hurricane come or that snowstorm y'all got hit with, and we start to realize who the great power really is and what we rely on. The illusion of isolation is really what I call neuro drift, a drift away from our sense of self, within not just our species, but the world that we live in, our sense of connectedness. Now, there's a book by a man named William Gray, who was a Kabbalist, and Kabbalism being the Judaic mystical tradition and magical tradition. And he was a practitioner of both the Jewish Kabbalah and the Western Kabbalah. And in that book, the book is called The Tree of Evil, and it's about evil. And what he says in there is the genesis of evil is when a thing sees itself as separate. It's like, how do we define lint versus a tapestry? The lint is a piece of the threading that's no longer incorporated into the overall design. And things like exile and abandonment bring about wounds. And during this sense of disconnection from nature and the drift of that into women really felt the hit of that. It wasn't a far drift to drift from our relationship with Mother Earth and that which mothers and feeds us, the greater nature, and then woman herself. In the illusion of isolation, what began to evolve in us as a species is this abandonment, the sense of being separated from the greater whole. And in fact, I don't know about you. Well, I probably do, because we're pretty cool kids here. When we go to nature, when we go camping or we go hiking, or we just go immerse ourselves. And in many ways, what we're doing is we are resourcing ourselves. We're dropping ourselves deeper into the rhythm that made us. And there's a sense of peace that comes across us. And I'm sure everyone can relate to that when you go to the forest or sit by the river, the ocean. It like defrags us and pushes the reset button. I promise this connects to queerdom. I promise you. So the illusion of isolation and the core pain or core wound in the human spirit related to its neurological development is abandonment. And a species of our that has what we think of as free will or a sense of self-identity. And we invest a lot into the concept of self-identity as a species. Has to be healthy, it really has to balance between we and me. In fact, in the spiritual tradition I come out of, we see the great divine as Mother God, or Mother God, a goddess, and a Father God. Right? The twin poles in the engine of life. In fact, my elder said, I do not worship the lady nor the Lord, but the love space in between. Isn't that beautiful? This abandonment wound shows itself as fear, fury, and shame, right? And it really, the ultimate show of this neurological development is fundamentalism of any type. Because fundamentalism is based in the concept of absolutes. I got to be right. And if I'm not right, if I'm not right, maybe I'm not fulfilling my relationship to God or the divine. And so fundamentalism in its rigidity, and I'm talking about religious fundamentalism in its many forms, is I must be right. So let's talk about those other dampers real quick. And then how does queerdom fit into this? So the illusion of isolation is that sense of disconnect. In fact, we're the only species that I know of that goes to churches, synagogues, and temples to renew their sense of connection. Remember, the word religion comes from religio, to relink or reconnect. And last I talked to my cat, or she doesn't seem to need to go to a temple or church or synagogue to understand her intuitive sense of connection. Well, of course, she's also a cat, and they're already divine. We all know that. Uh, they'll tell us that. But humans specifically have to renew their sense of connection in some way to the all that is. And to each other. Now, it's about trying to control our environment, control things, and rigidity. And I think we all know something about rigidity when we look at the concept of the binary system. Now, I grew up in a very rigid culture. I'm a Southern Appalachian boy. Boys act like this, girls act like this. Boys uh, wear the, I grew up with boys don't wear bright colors ever. Pastels, those are evil, right? But so you would see men always wearing dark colors, very faded kind of colors. There's these very rigid concepts, right? Where did those things come from? They're arbitrary, ultimately. They come from our cultures, and what is male and what is female and how's it expressed is really changes from tribe to tribe, from geographic area to geographic area. Not that terribly steeped in actual biology, you know. In fact, I remember my elder, she used to love my ex and I, because we dress up a lot, you know, and we like to look nice and all that. And she called us her peacocks, you know. And she reminded me, she said, in the older days, often in many cultures, the men were the peacocks. The men were the one flaunting all up, you know, and the women were the ones with the strength, or the females with the strength. Ask a praying mantis. You know, we have the bright green male and the strong, bigger female. She's brown and she kind of eats his head. She's tough. So even the way we've placed things in set points, or forgive me, I don't mean to be rude or using any wordy words, but a friend of mine calls these the masturbations. The masturbations. This must be this, and this must be this, and this must be this. I call them consciousness set points. Because with consciousness set points of this must be this way, this must be this way, with that is the fulfillment of the desire to control. But that has been falling apart over the last 50 years or so. And we have been a part of that. You see, where the gay, lesbian, transgender, bi, questioning, etc. folks fit into this overall thing I call the co-creative call to action. Once again, the co-creative call to action, really what it was a stirring in humanity, that it was moving in the direction of industrialization and, you know, doing things that would harm the environment and maybe irreparably. And so it is in our traditions and the wisdom traditions that I carry, the ancestors awakened our blood. And it was they that stimulated the interest in us to go seek nature-based spirituality or eco-spiritual practices of some type. And it's out of necessity. We're still animals. We also still have an intuition. You know, the way we perceive anything really has affected intuition. We have intuition and extuition. Intuition is knowledge that comes from the inside out. Extuition is knowledge that comes from the outside in. And it's like exoteric, esoteric. Those set points, specifically the gender one and of lifelong bonding and sexuality, we were born beautiful queer folk to blow up those set points. Now, I was a part of a book called Queer Magic, and it's an anthology, and I was really honored to be a part of it. And I wrote about something I call the rainbow fire, the rainbow flame. And at the beginning of the chapter, I always like when I write any books or any chapters, I always put like a little poem or something. It's just my style. So I started this one out with not a poem, more of a statement. I said, I'm a witch, a queer witch of the worst kind. I am an eggshell in the omelet of convention, a grit you cannot ignore. Isn't it juicy? I was really proud of that one. Because we are eggs, we are a piece of eggshell in the omelet of convention. A grit that could not be ignored. You see, to move towards where we got to go, to get out of the, we have to get into connection of community, human and other, to begin to blow up that illusion of isolation. We have to let go of the set points, these masturbations, to get us past that damper. And then the desire to possess, the accumulation. I don't know if we're doing real well at them, because that one's a gay man. I do like pretty things. But the desire to possess or to own or control again. And the last one was that resentment of change. And that's just simply, or desire for absolutes. And that is that I've got to figure out the way to be right. You know, there's been a lot of casualties from those dampers. The Black community has incurred so much damage. Women, queer communities, Native Americans, and the list goes on. In my view, we are a very major part of the co-creative call to action for the restoration of well-being for Earth and its life. You see, we're an answer in many ways to overpopulation. We've got to, I love babies, but we've got to slow down. We're over-consuming the earth, we're overtaxing it. And what do we do with all these beautiful children in foster care who have no parents and often are placed in different homes, sometimes abused? And well, hello, we've got beautiful households, same-sex households with love. In fact, my ex raised 3 of them, him and his husband. I'm really proud of him, because LGBT youth are the most difficult to place. And they often don't do well unless they're lucky enough to get placed in a household that is affirming, or with LGBTQ, parents. And still this is not enough, but we're an answer to that. But we're something else. There are many set points about what defines love, who we should love. And you see that the problem with those set points of, and I don't mean to insult any Christians here, because I love you, but God is love, all life affirming love, including same-sex love. And yes, I spoke to God directly. You can too. I had a visitation from specifically Yahweh, and it was very powerful. And actually, I thought I was getting in trouble because I was with a group of scholars, and they were all, like pagan academians and eco-spiritual, and we were not talking real well about some of the things that have happened in the holy wars and such. And I went back to the room where I was sleeping that night at a friend's house who's a ceremonial magician and a psychologist and all that. And I don't know if you've heard this before, but there are some mystical tradition or mystical practices that say that Yahweh's name is actually less pronounced as a name, but pronounced as a breath with a, isn't that beautiful? In the beginning was the word. Breath, of course, is the beginning of the issuing forth of life. Movement, the stirrings. So I was laying there in bed, and yes, I heard, what did I hear? But everything in that room going, and I immediately went, oh my gosh, God, you heard what we said tonight, didn't you? You heard when I was mad at you. And I want you to hear what this divine being said. I actually went, I said, God, is that you? And the divine said, don't call me God. I don't like that name. I told Yeshua not to call me that. It distances me. I don't want to be called that. And I went, and all I could think of was, oh, God's testy. And what came back was, I said, well, what would you prefer me to call you? I said, just call me grandfather. I like that. And of course, many of the Native American tribes call the Great Spirit Tunkashala in Lakota tradition grandfather. Now, the story is got some powerful insights. And I'm here to tell you however way you see the divine, and I hope you do, whether you name it or not, that you reached that which made you, that which is beyond just this little point. This wave wants to commune with the ocean that it emanates from. And I said, well, grandfather, I'm mad at you. I'm really mad at you. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get struck with lightning probably. And so, and that's not what happened at all. He was very loving. So the series of things I said to him, and this fits for you and the statements about love. I said, well, I'm mad at you. If Yeshua was, which is Jesus' real name, I said, if Yeshua was really your only begotten son, which I don't believe, forgive me, Christians, but why in the world would you send your only begotten son down into torture, knowing that was going to happen? You should have never had custody. I can't believe I said it. And actually, what I got back to me was compassion, and then I went on with other questions about God or the source. And I said, well, why did you send this being named Yeshua? So when the world needed love, to understand love, I extended, notice the wording, I extended myself as Yeshua. I thought, okay, I got to test this. Because I'm also an occultist and a mystic. So I'm like, well, what about Buddha? And because when the world needed to understand peace, I extended myself as Buddha. Well, I pushed the envelope and I said, well, what about Aragia? Aragia was the daughter of the goddess Diana in the Etruscan tradition. Many say it as Aradia, who came to free the Etruscan peasants as a sort of messianic figure of the goddess Diana from, the tyranny of slavery. And so she was a witch goddess. And I thought, oh, I could get in trouble with this, but I'm going to do it. I said, well, what about Aragia? Well, the world needed to overcome the domination of, I think it was the power lead or something. They said, I extended myself as. So now this divine being's really fulfilling the concept of, in my house are many mansions, many facets of the divine, whatever name you call, but call in sacred way. But where this went then personally, I said, So I was asking, why did you become this and this and this? So I asked the heretic question. And I offer this to you to ask the heretic question too. And I said, grandfather, why did you become me? That may seem like an odd question, but to quote my mama, one day I was asking her about God, because I grew up in folk Christianity, which is a very different. It's Christianity, but it's very different. It's very different in many ways. And I said, I was like, Mama, does God have a mama? God, we're made in God's image. She said, of course he does. It's heaven. God always goes back to heaven. I says, Mama, isn't that pretty? But I said, why did you become me? So one day I even said to Mama, God, what is God? She said, what about Omni? Don't you get? God's everything, everything, everything like that. And I said, well, if indeed, this is the journey from spiritual to mystical. You see, the spiritual questions are, what is it? What is my role in it? What is the great creator? What is it? And the mystical question is then, if the great it is everything, it's me too, it's you too, then why did you become me, and how do I fulfill the vision that inspired my creation? And so out of this talk with Yahweh about when you would say, or grandfather, and he'd say, oh, I extended myself as this extent. And I wanted to know then, why did this great vast being extend itself as you? So do yourself a favor one day. Go to the mirror. Look into your beautiful eyes, right? Your eyes that have seen the face of cruelty and the face of love and support, and held true to who you are, driven by a pulse that ultimately you couldn't explain. You might say, oh, I was fighting for my rights. It's deeper. You were fighting. You weren't fighting. You were determined to become who you are, to obey the life within you, to become the love in the way the love is expressed within you. Go to the mirror, look at your eyes, look at your beautiful eyes, windows of the soul. And I want you to look deep into your eyes until you can look into that little hole there where the pupil is. Look way back in there until you see a little tiny spark. It's in there, I promise you. That's the piece of the divine that's in there. And ask it, God, why did you become, or grandfather, or however you want, why did you become me? And leave yourself open. And as my mother said, the divine speaks on the tongue of 10,000 angels. Release your question and your answers will come. In my discussion with grandfather, I said, why did you become me? And it's, I still can't always say it without crying, because he said, when the world needed magic and the wonderment of magic, I became you. And your quest, all of our quest is, why did the creator become you? And it did. Why did the creator become an expression of love that we think of as gay, lesbian, bi, because as we all know, it's so much more than just who we have sex with. And even how we perceive ourselves, our gender, from within to without. In the end, it's about love, the love of self, the love of life, the love of another. To become the love that made you is the answer, have the answer to the question of why. Now, you knew why you came here all the way up to you were about 7 years old. Look back in your youth. What did you pretend to be? What did you like to watch? What are your favorite little characters? What did you fancy yourself to become? And in that is the crumbs, the little crumbs that let you know why you came here. why you were born and what you were to release into the world. I would like to say humbly and with awe, look at you. You've become yourself. I asked that night, I asked the grandfather, I said, I have heard you weeping in the dark of the night when most are asleep, but the mystic is awake, listening to the subtle voices that only the soul can hear. I said, what makes you weep? Because I don't want to make you weep. And I share this with you because I think it's a part of your journey. What grandfather said, when a human knowingly never becomes the life that's inside of them, never becomes themselves, and then dies, a part of me is gone forever. Is that powerful? What? Because we were born to paint the truth of our spirit onto the canvas of form, not to be trapped in another's painting. In order for humanity to become the divine imprint. And I actually take that biblical piece, and it's in other mystical traditions too, of being made in the likeness and image of that which made us. I take it as direct. No, not 5 fingers and 2 hands and all that, but that the composition at a microcosmic level is in us. That there is a light that is inside each one of us. In the tarot cards, the tarot deck, the tarot means a wheel. And they have a major arcana and minor arcana. The major arcana, like the emperor, the magician, all these things, they actually represent, embody whole mysteries of life. And they actually were a part of mystery schools. And there's 2 cards in there that I think are so beautiful and special for us to know, especially because the Fool card and the Hermit. I love those 2 very much. You see, in the Fool card, the image is of this androgynous young person. Can't tell for sure if it's male or female. You're not supposed to. And they have a hobo pack over their shoulder that has all the wisdom of what they have been in it. They are looking out over a cliff, getting ready to step off into it. And what that is called the cloud of unknowing. They're getting ready. That's the, because that's the 0 card. That's the innocence of the soul stepping off the great cloud and then falling into form, being born. And so if you look closely at that card, it has a real powerful message. Nipping at its feet is a little dog. That's the little dog going, don't do it, don't step off the cliff. It's sort of the instinctual self, maybe going, it's unknown. That's the unknown. Don't do it, But if you look at the image, the Fool card, the androgynous being is looking heavenward and stepping onto the cloud of unknowing, basically going, guide me, guide me, guide me. I know that I've been heaven made. And then steps into the great circle of life and is born. Now, that pure light that was within that soul, stepping onto the cloud of unknowing and being born by a sacred directive, a divine directive of some sort. By the time it gets to the Hermit, you see the Hermit card looks like a wizened old man in a cassock. He's kind of in an old priest type robe or magician's robe. And he's got a light in front of him, a lantern, and he's holding it. The reason he's holding that, he has learned through age and wisdom. And Buddha defined wisdom was to see and you will know, but do and you'll understand. Therein lies the difference between knowledge and wisdom. The light then that was in the heavens guiding the soul to be born is then the light that's embedded deep inside each one of us. And as we grow into who we are, that light comes out into our lantern. And it is the light that guides us. the divine spark within us. It took courage to become yourself. There's a RuPaul quote that I just love. RuPaul said, "We're all art waiting to happen." Isn't that beautiful? We're all art waiting to happen. So we are moving into this phase now where we cannot think the way we have thought before. In fact, the illusion of isolation and that disconnect has caused us to invent things that are toxic. I mean, what other animal pees in the stream and then goes downstream and dips a cup into it and takes a sip and says, "Oh, why does this taste bitter?" Right? It's like that's how many of our inventions and how we've been living is not being able to see through a considerate and connected and mind, and that fuel our creativity. So there's certain set points in how we've been that have to go. This is also where you come in. So the visions I've had, the guidance I've had is that we, in order to correct the damages we've done to Earth and to halt our potential extinction and the potential damage to the Earth that we don't really know what that will mean or could mean, is we have to blow up many of the rigid set points that have fed our behavior in the past. One, we've got to deal with population. We got to deal with a different kind of love, and we've got to have eyes that are seeing through fluidity of consciousness. Now, this may seem like this really esoteric thing, but it's not. The brain wants to fully ignite. And even the binary way of seeing things, this must be this, and compartmentalizes, doesn't allow the fullness of hemisync to happen. I would say that the male side of the brain has caused problems now that only the inductive, creative side of the brain can fix. So our brain right now is creating problems that only the other part of our brain can fix. And soon that corpus callosum, that rainbow bridge that connects the two lobes, is going to awaken and ignite. As the ancient brain, the medulla, and the new brain, the frontal cortex, and the left and right brain. And we might think of those as the parts of the whole, the creative, the inductive, the deductive or reductive thinking. The brain is trying to ignite y'all. Guess what? You were a part of blowing up set points. As we move from fluidity of sexuality, blowing up set points that men cannot love men, women cannot love women. I heard this minister, and I just loved him what he said. I think it was a Baptist minister, that he said, it was a YouTube thing. He said, well, and this was a few years ago, because he said it's been 5 years since, all these gay marriage laws now have come into being and all these gay people have gotten married. He said, and the devil hasn't come and claimed the land, and the end of the world has not come, and we're doing pretty well. And he says, I guess I was wrong. And I just loved him. I just want to kiss him. It was like, I guess I was wrong. Love is okay. Love in its many expressions is okay. But you're here to embody that. You got to ask yourself, becoming who we've become wasn't for social perks. It wasn't for a raise. It wasn't for all the goodies that we would get from, filling what was required of us, or retrofitting us into forms not fit for us. But something inside you said, I must become the love that sits inside me. I must become who I am. You see, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who die with withered dreams. I do a lot of ancestral healing with folks. In fact, we have a saying with this work. I do the river of blood work because we're all boats of flesh on the river of blood, a stream of ancestry that we have arrived from and that flows through us. And there's only two things everyone must know: tangle up your lines or contaminate your flow. We're in the middle of a time when we have to let the ancestors speak. We have to let the past speak and the wounds be observed. Black Lives Matter was in many ways that. I applaud the Black community. I love the Black community so much for Black Lives Matter, because if we can take the leap, witness rage, there should be some rage, witness and allow ourselves all to heal our community, then we can go, then there'll be a woman's lives matter or Native American lives matter, all lives matter. But I applaud them for being the community to step up and say, we're tired of it and we're not going to be quiet. And did you see how many white folk came out? I was so proud of us because they came out saying, no, this is my community, my people, because we're all children of one mother, you know? And that has got to go too. Not homogeneity where we melt down and become one. I don't support the Great American Melting Pot. That's a horrible concept. And if you research it, you'd see why. It's homogeneity, where you melt people down to be as one, like one type. In fact, I spoke at Lincoln University years ago, where I got my master's degree in human services. And that is the first historically Black college in America. And although they sort of bicker between them and Howard University, who was the first, but I think Lincoln in the end was the first. Of course, I'm going to say that because I graduated from there. But they asked me to speak as a keynote speaker at the graduation. And I spoke to the concept of the Great American Soup Pot, or the crock pot. I love crock pots where you can put things in and they simmer and become yummy stews. You see, a good vegetable soup doesn't involve melting down each vegetable so everything tastes the same, but instead bringing them together in a melody where each part augments and creates a taste that otherwise would have never existed. No one is replaceable. So I want to stop a minute and see if there's any questions or comments on stuff I've been talking about. And then I must say some things about gender, fluidity of gender, and then fluidity of consciousness further. So if I could hear from folks, your thoughts and questions, but don't throw rocks, okay? I'm bald, it hurts.
Yeah, if you can use your icon, since there are so many of us, if you can use the hand icon, or if you raise your hand, kind of move it around so we can see you. Are
We
there?
can't do
Let's
a
see. We got
welcome back,
two
Cotter thing.
screens.
We can't do like welcome back, Cotter. Do y'all remember that? Ooh, 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 ooh.
Anybody have any questions so far? Curiosities? Okay, Ryan, back to you.
Well, I'm going to get my agenda out here. The reason that I call this a call to action was I think that when we go to gay prides, which I love gay pride, and I hope we bring back the strength to it, because with gay marriage and such, same-sex marriage, there's a bit of complacency has hit a lot of people. We're like, oh, we've arrived. Do we really need to go out and rah-rah? Yes, we do. We're not done. We're not done. And in fact, we should never feel that we're done. In fact, we got to get ready for a whole nother bunch of revolutions that are going to happen. I wanted to share something with you. So one day I was looking at one of the sort of meetup sites that gay men sometimes look at, and I was looking at and I get a lot of insights sometimes when I look at what people are, how they're describing themselves, what they're looking for, and it tells me a lot. So there was this one profile, And this man was on there, obviously wanting to meet romantic and sexual partners. And he said, I'm quoting him. He said, "Gay brothers, I'm straight. I don't want to have sex with you. I love you. You're beautiful, but I don't want to have sex with you. I'm straight. I only am interested in cis women, trans women, effeminate men, boys, or something like this, effeminate men." And he went down this whole list of that and said, "I'm only interested in the feminine." Now, are y'all hearing the power in this wonderful queer straight man? And so I brought that into a group of young gay friends that we were talking about just stuff, thoughts and things to contemplate. I said, "I want to ask you what you think of this man." And a bunch of them said, "Well, I think he's in the closet, and I think he has to admit he's bi." He's this. I said, "Oh, now this is a challenge for you. We've been fighting to be able to be identified by the pronouns we identify with, from within to without. That's not just for LGBTQI folks. Because guess what? The revolution that we represented is happening. And now what we think of as straight people are changing." This wonderful man, I loved it. I wrote him, and I had to make sure because of a statement there. I said, "I'm not writing you because I want to bonk you or nothing like that. I'm writing you because I want to celebrate you." I said, "How wonderful that you're redefining straight." And I said, "I've got to take your languaging and talk to many other people that I know." But when I brought it to my group of gay guys that were talking about it, they were in their masturbations, their rigidness. No, they're in the cause of this or that. I said, oh, you're sounding rather rigid there. We got to get ready for a queer world. This sounds like a new amusement park, doesn't it? Queer world. Actually, it sounds like a wonderful one. But the word queer is an old word. And it was often associated, believe it or not, with magic. Because to say something was queer, to say it was odd, it didn't fit the mold. It was that eggshell and the omelet of convention. It was the genetic anomaly that then changes a whole species and it begins to evolve in a different way. You see, we're part of an answer, a big answer. And that answer is how to move out of the set points that were so rigid that there was killing love and killing people. How many people did not make it to actualize themselves? And still we have high rates of adolescent suicide among LGBT youth. And how many of our foremothers and forefathers went through such horrors? And ultimately, they were standing for something, and it was a change in humanity. And I love whoever came up with those words, love matters. Because we're getting to, I think that probably in another 20 years, maybe less, we're probably going to find people looking back going, there was a time when same-sex marriages weren't legal. Right? There will come a time when we're looking back on why it won't make sense. Things don't when we evolve and we do things in a different way that improves on something. So now we're in the transgender revolution. I don't know about you, but I'm so damned excited. I can't see straight. There's not much to do straight anyway, but I'm so excited. And the reason is, you see, there's a saying, we see the world from where we stand. In neurophysiology, which I used to teach some of, when I was doing addictions work in public health, and I taught in some of the universities locally. And there's a saying that neurons that fire together wire together. It's entrainment. And see, when something entrains in you, it's a neurological set point. It's a set point in perception, and it becomes, in many ways, a reality, even though it may not be absolute reality at all. It's the reality that we have formed our nervous system around, and our whole perceptual reach or perceptual grasp. I ask you, what will scientists, transgender scientists, come up with eyes that were shaped in a different way of perception? When you've migrated through the gender expressions to bring yourself to a place that matches the internal and external, and I'm sorry, the transgender not movement, the process of transgendering itself is courageous. I'm sorry, that's powerful commitment. That is a shamanic shape change that requires an immense amount of discernment and courage and clarity. And so I've been sitting with many of my intersex and trans friends and saying, and challenging them, saying, I want you to start questioning the ways that you may have once saw things through eyes that were two poles. Because you see, we're moving from set points to a radio dial. You know, I was a part of an LGBT, it was a, what it was like it was an advocacy group of, I forget what the affinity group. It was an affinity group. It was at a gathering that I've been going to for like 30 years. So I'm seen as an elder there. And I went in, and there was all these young queer folk there, and I'm listening to them talking, right? And a question went around by the leader of the group, or the coordinator of the group, one of them, and both of them were older, in their 50s. I said, how has, that question to everybody was, how has being gay or lesbian or queer in any way informed your spirituality? How has it informed your paradigm, how you see your world, how you shape your world? Very good question. Because, you know, we don't think about it when in our journey to become ourselves. But the journey towards a type of intrapsychic integrity where the internal and external match also requires a lot of questioning of things, a lot of confronting things directly, and a blowing up of set points. And as that happens, neurological entrainment shifts and changes. Y'all, we're at a time in the evolution of consciousness where I truly believe that the transgender movement, I just get so excited about it, is the final and most potent set point blow up in them all. You see, philosophies that were contrary to being queer in any way was mostly because it was fueled by ancient traditions that were associated with procreation at a time when that was very important. That was, you know, your children were also your retirement. They took care of you. It was how everyone survived. You had to have children, and made sense. It just made sense. And so I call those vitality traditions. In fact, I wrote a book on the craft, and the craft has its own little internal battles that happen about who's right, who's the right tradition, who's the real ones, you know, all that stuff. And I read that the mysteries of magic and magical traditions are based in either being a vitality tradition or fertility tradition, a mystery tradition, with a magical tradition, and there was another one. I can't, good heavens, I'm stuff and I can't remember. There was one more. I'll think of it later. But the reason these different traditions felt that, no, ours is the right one, yours is the wrong one, ours is the right, was because if I coming from a tradition that is based in fertility or vitality, then anything that's not supporting the fertility of things is not real. It's not real craft, right? It's not, especially if I'm oathbound and this is my paradigm. But then when I'm a mystery tradition, or maybe a Gnostic tradition, where the wisdom is something that is the point of the divine within the flames, awakens, then a set doctrine may not make sense at all to me. Only things that lead me towards that aha, the gnosis. We see the world from where we stand, and we stand at a different place. And when we stand at a place that becomes inclusive, inductive reasoning happens. And inductive reasoning is very different than deductive. You see, deductive reduces things down to its parts. And it's a very useful tool to know a very specific thing. But where it has not served us well is, and deductive reasoning is not so good always at contemplating the toxicities, right? And thus we see commercials about medicines. Take this acne medicine. It'll make your pimples go away, but your prostate's going to be gone. Or, your hiney hole will fall out, or some horrible thing like that. It was like, oh my God, with inductive reasoning or co-creative reasoning, we have a perceptual stance that's inclusive of the environment and of the holism of an object, a person, a ecosystem, a biosphere. And I think that we're about to watch a consciousness revolution like we have never seen before. To get to the trans movement, we had to go through the LGBT, well, really the L and the G movement first started. Questioning, challenging, standing up for love and our attractions and our love, and obeying it, obeying our life force, the way the life force expresses itself through us. And by doing that, it did affect the world. Heck, one of my straight friends, I just love this guy so much. One day we were talking and he just said to me, we were talking, it was someone, it was something, it might have been, it was one of the leaders out there that was very homophobic. And he just said his name's Jay, and Jay goes, and he's very, very heterosexual. And he says, a world, and he goes, a world, he was talking about gay men at the time, because of course he's talking to me. He goes, a world without gay men. Oh, I shudder to think of this. He goes, oh, that would be a world far less fabulous. And I loved him for it. And the truth is, take the queer out of Hollywood, and that's the end of Hollywood. We do bring something, and we can see the something that we brought. There's something called sacred permissions. And how a sacred permission came into my awareness was I had gone through a period of really dark time when my dad died, my sister died within 8 months of each other. And I came out of a 25-year relationship. It was just a lot, a tower time where the one tower falls and the new one rises. And I just wasn't sure, why am I saying this? I just lost my train of thought. Did someone catch it? I may have to catch that thought a minute because another thought came through. But I thought that I was losing everything, and in fact, I was kind of wondering, lost. In fact, that's when I started coming up with concepts like, God, why did you become me? In fact, then I said it to the divine feminine. As pieces were falling off of me that were familiar, that I knew, that I felt this is a part of my very identity, and they're going away. And I remember standing at the feet of my bed in a very melodramatic way, I might add. And I was ready to give up, and I was too much. And I thought I was giving up, but I wasn't giving up. I was giving in. was giving in to the indwelling spark of life, of divinity within me. And I was saying this to the great goddess, because I see divine as mother and father. And ever since I was a kid, I've always called her the mother spirit. And I said, Mother Spirit, Mother Spirit, help me to see me the way you saw me when you made me. Take my mind, make it your mind. Take my heart, make it your heart. I surrendered. And in doing that, and then the very, again, like the nesty plunge, I fell back into the bed. And I did, because I thought I was just giving up. Here, just take it, make it yours. Of course, it was the divine's already. But in doing so, what I did is invited the light, the deepest place of that light inside, to awaken. Because basically what I said is, oh, inspiration, that was the force, the velocity that brought me here. Oh, thought, oh, aha, in the mind of God, goddess, all that is, that said, what would happen if I Orionize myself, put your name in there? And it extended itself and became human, and this quality of human. And I touched that light, because sometimes we go to the deepest place. And I know there's I see a lot of gray hair on here, maybe some no hair on here, a little hair migration. So we've got some years behind us. And I know that and in those years, you've faced times where you thought, I don't know how I'm going to survive this, or I've lost so much, or so much is against me. And you were pushed all the way into your explosive center and had a volcanic explosion of change. And here you are. And here you are. Well, folks, we have gone through a process in our growth and in the growth of our culture that now we need to bring to our greater community. Mark my word, there are many more set points that are about to detonate before our eyes, because part of the poem I read you, where it said it will not be reduced, it will not be called sinful, will not be called any of that. The light that is inside you, the being that defies the limits or the girdling of the soul that often gets placed by convention or placed by a consensus. Because in our own way, we're all heretics. The definition of heretic is not evil. It is, the original definition is one who speaks out contrary to consensus. I call that an agent of change. That's what we've been being. So on our way to fluidity of consciousness, we can no longer think how we've thought. We have to think in a very different way in order to repair our environment and to heal our people. In many ways, we became queer not just to become ourselves, but as a statement of becoming obedient to the light and life within us. And by doing so, being an example that it can be done. See, this sacred permission concept I mentioned, that's what it was. I didn't tell the rest of it. So I went through this period where all these deaths and all that occurred, and I was just not, I was having a hard time, and I was on the road teaching, and I was working with a wonderful woman named Sophia. And Sophia looked at me one day, because I was really working to be optimistic and trying to give the best of myself. And she looked at me and she said, Orion, you have the permission to be angry. And I said, what? I'm an Aries, so my ego got a little hit too. And I said, I don't need anyone's permission to be angry. And she was talking about angry about the losses, the deaths, all this. But something inside my BS detector went off. And I thought, wait a minute, no, I did need permission. to be angry about the loss of these loved ones and these things. Sometimes we need sacred permissions. You beautiful ones, and I mean this from the depths of my heart, are sacred permissions to the world to become the expression of the love and the life that sits within them. You see, we don't know now, with the permissions that have come out from being gay or bi or lesbian or transgender, we have no concepts yet of what those sacred permissions mean to the neuro-entrainment that had us looking at things in certain perceptual stances and inventing from that position. We don't know yet what we and our people will bring, and what the trans movement's going to bring, and what we have inspired through sacred permission to others. Because if you don't think that there's others looking at you at times and going, you know, they're really cool. I love the way she is herself and unabashed, or he or they, or what you don't know is the secret wounds that people may have, or the secret dreams and hopes, and how you becoming yourself in the face of adversity gave a prototype of courage and strength and possibility to a silent dream waiting to percolate inside of someone watching you, who may become the inventor of the healing of the world. Simply because their set points that they may have thought they had to live, but it wasn't them. You gave them the courage and inspiration to become themselves. And in that, we don't know what creative and intellectual capacity will be freed into the world. So here we are at the horizon. Those of you, if you've ever kept up with the statistics on intersex used to be an anomaly where it was, I can't remember the number, it was something like 1 in every maybe 7,000. That don't quote me on that, because that's not absolute, but now it's like maybe 1 in 1,200 or something, you know, it's, or less, you know, it's going from an anomaly to a trend. Now, what does that mean? It means we're changing. It means our species is not done its biologic development fully yet. And I wonder what our role was in giving the entrainment of our own neurology the permission to reshape reality and allow it to breathe and allow it to blossom and to become. So when you go to lay down tonight, or you're looking at yourself in the mirror, putting on, I don't know, clean your face or shaving or moisturizing or whatever, you know, we do, I want you to stop a minute and look at that person and just say something like, hell yeah. You know, remember that Elton John song, I'm Still Standing? Here you are, because you'll never fully know who you've inspired and whose set points were, and who had set points that were changed, and who now is moving in a more fluidic way of life, expanding their perception, expanding their experience of life, and having ahas that lead to major cures, or an understanding of ecology that will help fix the damages that could otherwise, you know, extinct us. This is not theoretical. This is actual. There is research, quite a bit of research going on right now on consciousness, folks. I've been writing this book, co-authoring a book on stones and crystals and gems and their use in mystical, magical healing practices. But I'm coming at it from a different point. I'm an animist, you know, and an animist is, an animistic thinking is the oldest, if you want to think of spiritual paradigm in the world. It heralds from a time when everything was alive with spirits, everything was alive. And yes, I bump into my chair and I say, excuse me, or I'm sorry. I treat everything as conscious because for me, it's all alive. Well, the astrophysicists are real close to releasing a position now of that the universe is conscious because they've got the data showing it. That nothing, there is no space per se. There's a net of data where all things communicate with each other in a holism of which we are all a part. So I think we're getting close to our time. And I want to leave room for interaction. Don't be so quiet, y'all. What's percolating in those wonderful queer minds? Is this making sense?
Let's see. Danny has a question. So Danny first, and then Tom.
Hi. My main question would be, how do I find queer witches near me?
Haha. Where are you? What area are you in?
Right now I'm in New Jersey. My home is in Connecticut.
Oh my goodness. There's a huge, I tell you what, Jan, can you get my contact information to you? Because I'm very much embedded in the New England pagan community, and I could get you connected to queer witches up there. There's tons of them, wonderful ones up there. And in fact, I don't know if you go to Rites of Spring, but I'll be there. I've been going there for like 30 years. And it's wonderful, very affirming. And if go, you'll meet many there, and I'll be there, and I'll introduce you around, and yeah, and then also I'll look for some advocacy groups. So if you,
Okay, that sounds amazing. How will you send that to me?
well, I think Jan, are you going to be able to? You can give anybody really my email if you want, or I could give it. I could just make it easy and give it to you now. It's a Faery, go figure, right? Faery. So Faery Seer, Seer at gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that.
Can you repeat that?
It's
I see it.
Faery, as in
Yeah, I just put it in the chat, and I'm gonna put Orion is also very active on Instagram and Facebook. His website, however, has not been updated in a long time.
no,
So I'm going to
I
put
bow my head in
his.
shame.
And Orion, do you have a Patreon? Is that working?
I do. I'm still. I'm an IT idiot, y'all. I'm coming.
That's why I
I'm
asked.
coming up to the century, right? I do have a Patreon. It's somewhat active. I need coaching on it, on how to do the world of Patreon, but I do have it. Now, if you ask me what my Patreon address is, I don't know how I could get that to you, if you want to get that out. And I'm starting to post things more there as I understand the Patreon. But I'm definitely on Facebook and Instagram a lot, you know.
Okay, so I just put in the chat, I put Orion's Patreon, his Facebook, it all got mashed together, and his Instagram. Tom, you had a question. And then Maeve is next.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Ryan.
Love you, brother.
love you too. Someday we need to get a chance to chat. I've got a whole bunch of notes here from what you said that I want to go, Orion, look at it this way. And because I just got a chance to look at it your way and go, yeah, it's really good.
Let's do it.
All right. I don't know if you remember now, but I studied astrophysics back in the day at Caltech. Totally with you on the universe being having its own everything. But I got to tell you that this isn't new. The Incas knew that whenever, 1500, 2000 years ago. They were, this is Pachamama, this is Pachapapa that you're talking about there, where everything is there and came down to BS from another tradition. The traditions are there. We're bringing them back. This is wonderful. It's time to bring this stuff back, and that's what I love about what you're doing.
Amen. Big love to you for saying that. Science is actually leading us right back to our inner knowing, what the ancients do.
It's about time. The other thing is, I don't know if you know this, but the Inca tradition is that one of the big Pachacutis is happening now, which is a time of massive change.
Yeah.
And they've been, this is the time. So everybody is kind of lining up with this, and I'm just so happy to hear you're doing this same kind of stuff too.
Thank you, brother. I spoke out a lot about the coronavirus when because of course that's been affecting all of us so much. Isn't it interesting that corona means crown? It means crown. And when I was interviewed by the Wild Hunt on its online magazine, and interviewed me and this wonderful Santeria priestess, because we both had backgrounds in, I think her brother had AIDS, died of AIDS, and the other, she was immersed in the gay community and did work. And then I was a public health administrator for years. And so, and we were talking about, what I felt as a gay man living through the AIDS epidemic and the AIDS crisis and blah, 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 all that, and what advices I would give. And one of the things I told them, I said, when we stayed home in the quarantine, which was wonderful, it was so many good things came from that. We were protecting our breath and the breath of those we live with and love in our homes. But when we go out, we were not just protecting our breath, we were protecting the breath of others. And one of the things I loved about it, and I will forever keep one of my masks. And when it comes the time that we don't need them, I pray for that time, I want to take one of them and make a piece of art from it, because I looked at it as a type of grail. Every time I put that mask on to go out, I was putting it on because everybody's breath mattered. Because we all dip into and drink from a common well together. And that is the air itself, the breath. And when I would wear it, I would think about that, and I'd put it on. And when I'd go to like supermarket or something, as I saw people, I would think to myself, and sometimes I would say it out loud, and people loved it. I would say, I'm wearing this mask because your breath matters to me. Your breath is sacred. So it's a type of grail of remembrance to awaken in us the sense of connection and obligation to care for each other. It's a lot of good things that came out of Corona too, and a lot of losses, but a lot of good things. And if we get that, some of those, we will beautifully be changed by it.
I did a journey to the coronavirus, and it said similar kinds of things, that it was there for a purpose, for us to help us, not to hurt us. People die, people always die, and that was not really the intention, but yeah, you named some of the things I didn't see in my journey, but yeah, exactly right. Thank you, Orion.
Thank you. I wear the mask sometimes. I've got vaccinated and all that, right? But sometimes I still wear it because it's scary anyway, the thing. But also it reminds me that there's something sacred about it. It didn't distance me from others by hiding. It equalized everybody, right? And it did make me pause and think about the breath of other people, meaning the connection, the invisible connection that we all have,
Orion, we have 3 questions here. The first one from, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Maeve. Go for it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I just wanted to make a comment about gender queerness and how it, I think, helps in these situations, which you touched on a number of times, but you asked for feedback, so I thought I'd give some. So I think everybody who has experiences in their life or goes through gender queerness, sexual identity, gender identity, anything like that, has really looked at both sides or more than one side of what the cishet culture delivers to us and says we should pay attention to and feel, and to open that up and to become someone who's looked at both sides or accepts both sides of themselves is really just opening up more parts of your brain. I've found my own circuits lighting up just being able, to go out cross-dressed or something like that. And it's like, wait, where did all this energy come from? It's like, well, you've repressed it all your life. You knew it was there, and you make jokes about it with your friends and family because that's kind of fun, but you never really accepted it. And since accepting it, it's huge. It's a huge amount of energy. It's just reset my emotional baseline and actually developed magical perceptions, that I've been trying to develop in other ways and been very successful at. So I just wanted to remind people that your queerness makes you powerful. It makes you, it gives you skills and perspectives on the world that many people do not have or reject. And so you can use that. And that's one of the things I like being, presenting myself as a queer elder. Is like, I want to go out and make people stare and look twice. It's like, so they can understand there's more to it than what comes through the TV. And if they can wake somebody up to that, then there's more people to fight this good fight.
I love you for saying that. I just love you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
My honey is a drag queen. He's fabulous too, by the way. He's gorgeous, so gorgeous. Oh my God. And so one day we had a friend of ours here, and he was all butchy, and Aubrey had his breastplate, that they wear that gives the beautiful breast and the shape to the body, all this stuff out, and he was putting on the wig and everything, the art, the whole transformation. And this guy said it was the most wonderful thing. He goes, I have always wondered. He said, I never wanted to tell anyone. He goes, what I would look like in drag. And Aubrey goes, do you want to do it? You could do it now. I'll help you. I'll doll you up. Y'all, this is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life. This man, so Aubrey's hair and makeup and he looked in the mirror and was like, I'm gorgeous. He goes, I'm gorgeous. And he was, prancing around here as a pageant queen. He was feeling beautiful. He was feeling in a different perception. And you watched the same thing. Because it also allows, there's a certain, there was a sign outside the park where I grew up. The town was Winchester, and I lived out in the country. And you go into the Winchester Memorial Park, and it just said, welcome to the Winchester Memorial Park. But on the way out, it said on the back of the sign, you don't don't stop playing because you grow old. You grow old because you stop playing. Isn't that beautiful? And I thought about it that day when I watched this man and how Aubrey gave him the sacred permission to step into that sandbox. And he says, every time I've ever seen him, he says, that was the most fun he'd had in a long time. And he said, and it really did. It liberated something inside of him. And I told him, I said, don't wrestle with it. Just live in wonderment. Love it. And let it grow as whatever it is. Isn't that beautiful? So I had to behold the healing power of drag, right? And it was something else to watch how we can give sacred permissions. I hope y'all really get that. I really want y'all to get that. I want you to walk away from this, not just with pride, with a sense of power, purpose. We're not just queer for ourselves and our community. We're queer for the world itself. So yes, sir. Jan, you're getting ready to say something, no doubt profoundly wise.
Riven, did I pronounce your name correctly? You've got a question.
Hi, hello. Good morning. As allies and queer witches and magical practitioners, how best do you feel we should be in a position to support our beautiful trans and non-binary communities who are under such sustained opposition at the moment?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. By the way, I can listen to you talk all day. Your beautiful
Thanks.
accent, absolutely gorgeous. And I'm going to use the example of when Black Lives Matter. When my friend Havila, who is married to, she's Irish, and she's married to this beautiful Haitian man, and they have two beautiful children, three beautiful children. And she and I both were very vocal because my honey is a beautiful, beautiful Black person, you know. And I say that because I'm still getting out of the he, she. I'm the journey of the pronouns. And she said it best. She said, and she posted this too on Facebook. She said, I don't want my beloved, who I love more than anyone in the world, and my children to be in a world where they have to be in fear because of the beauty and the majesty that they are. You know, whereas I say, I don't love you in spite of you. I love you because of you. You know, and so she and I both felt it unconscionable for anyone who loves anyone in the Black community, a friend, a neighbor, a lover, or whatever, to not in some way be a voice and get out there. I wasn't fighting for the Black community. I was fighting for my Black community. You know what I mean? Meaning I brought myself into an ownership because of my love and my people. And I think we have to do that for our trans folks. You know, it's when straight people was that organization where mother as parents in support of gay children, they often will march at gay pride and all. I just love them. I just love them. When parents were speaking up for gay children, when straight people were coming out for gay rights, when men were coming and the rallies for women, when we have to go out there and we've got to represent, you know. And this, I've been really getting on my gay brothers about this. I said, my friend, this isn't about gay rights. This is about queer rights. This is about human rights. So we now got to fight for our sisters and brothers who are transgendering, wherever. Find your place to put your voice, because it's the same, I'll say that it's the same consciousness shift that we encountered as gay people. And so now we've got to get behind, we got to ask them. You know, it's like, how did I learn the most about women? Talking to women, you know, and listening a lot, to my Black brothers and sisters, and et cetera, you know. We need to ask them how we can best help, where the challenges are now, where we can best place our power to support that leap, you know, because we're in this thing. What is it? Michael Beckwith, who has the Agape Church out in LA, says we're in this love together. And I just love that. So yeah. So I think wherever we put it, we have to look at our talents and our passions, right? And go to those aspects of the issues that need support, that match what brings you to life, like that match it, you know. For me, I know that these profoundly powerful, courageous people are representing the final leap into fluidity of consciousness. When that set point's gone, when people can fall in along that radio dial wherever they are and wherever they shift, because sometimes we change. We are, you know, we are emergence beings, meaning you're still, you know, we incarnated, we're still borning, you know, meaning, you know, we're still like a many petaled flower. There's petals of you still arriving, and you'll keep arriving until you burn out that form, and then you go to wherever your soul takes you, right? And become something else. But I really do believe they're pioneers. They're major pioneers, and that to not get behind them would be a major travesty. You know, I just love. I'm so in love with the trans community, and I've been really trying to get out there and speak about this fluidity of consciousness piece and the big role they play. All of you played a role in it. The same thing that they're committed to in a deeper level, right? Because not everybody knows that maybe I'm obeying the life within me, but they may not always realize they're also participating in the transformation and elevation of human consciousness itself. I doubt that most of us on here knew when we were coming out or even thought about it, and the greater view that I'm not just doing something that represents my own well-being and the well-being of a community I relate to, but actually a greater well-being. You know, and when we get that, it resacredizes every quality of our life. And every chance you get to reflect that back to our trans folks, because they are literally taking a lot of heat at times. Man, are they tough. Tough and powerful and fabulous and brilliant. Get behind them, please. Get behind them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Orion, thank you. So I just want to honor the time. It's we're 10 minutes over. If anybody needs to head out, thank you for joining us. Orion, do you have time for 2 more questions?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sierra, you're up next.
All
Good to
right.
see you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah. So I just really want to celebrate the work with the, putting up our trans love in a good way. And I've been, I've had the blessing to be with a lot of indigenous people in my life, a lot of indigenous friends, and they talk about this a lot. That's where I met Jan before at one of those ceremonies there. And yeah, I just wanted to quickly say thank you for helping me reframe like this pressure. We all grow into diamonds. There's a lot of things that haven't been easy in this life, and that an agent, been an agent of change, or the sacred permission. Someone just last week shared with me, I'm one of those people that even though I'm 52, I didn't move to San Francisco or Portland or New York City. I went to places like in my background, work in national parks, because I knew that we needed to heal our relationship with the natural world. And the way I know how to do that is just be in touch with places that haven't been too modified by human hands. And what I'm delighted to see is that there are people, I have 2 queer people that are interning for me now at the place I'm at, and on Instagram and just my little things I see that there are younger gay men that are meeting their husbands and living in places like this and doing conservation work and being outside of big cities where it's a little tougher to be. And it's hard because I feel like I'm left behind. I've been single for 10 years because there's just no one around to date. So I just want to say thank you for that.
I'll bet they're coming, you beautiful man. Keep giving them that beautiful spirit. And I often think to what, when we give consciousness, when our contribution to consciousness is breathing room to become itself, to cultivate the undivided, non-conflicted core, what do we resonate when we go out and touch the rest of life? And so I know, and because I'm very much a mystic, and that when I touch the plant world, I'm touching them with a touch that no longer lives in a soul cage. And so, when you touch the world, you're touching the world and everything in it with that liberated spirit, that spirit of celebration, the life expressed within to without. You see, when we have soul cages and set points, we emanate that. Your very queerness is emanating something too. That's a vital permission to nature itself. It has a resonance that touches, and I can guarantee you that is true. Just keep radiating that message, my friend, the permission, because our soul cages have affected nature, but our liberation from them also will affect nature. There are answers to things that we have broken as a human species that can only come when the soul cages fall apart. When the set points fall apart and there's fluidity of consciousness that can perceive in ways that it never has before. You know, keep being you, please. Our lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra. Thank you, Orion. Wendy, I think the final word comes to Wendy.
Oh, no pressure.
Hey, sweetie, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing okay. Good to hear from you. And I was just thinking about some of the things that you've said that always inspire me. You talked about the dark nights of the soul and the times when we have trouble finding hope and all the things that happen. And I was thinking about in the beginning of this discussion, mention of those who become so desperate that they harm or they kill themselves. And I was just thinking two of the tools that always helps me that you've shared with us many times is connection with those healed and whole ancestors, and remembering that even when we feel so alone and so much like maybe things are all against us, or we have no strength, or we have no power, drawing upon those healed and whole ancestors always lets me rise up again. And then also feeling that strength and power of the cloak of the angels, feeling that all around me, guiding and helping and protecting me, always lets me put one foot in front of the other again. And so I just wanted to mention those two tools that you've brought to us time and time again, that's so often gotten me through my dark nights of the soul. And I wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. It's an honor to serve you. Thank you.
And you do again and again.
Thank you. Maybe Jan, as we end, we can do a cloak of the angels for everybody. Something, a blessing for everybody.
Yes, I want to do one thank you. So in our group here, Toby Johnson.
Hi.
Hi, I want to thank you for showing up, for being here. You wrote a book called Gay Spirituality many, many years ago. And I picked that book up and it influenced me and it took me to where I am today. So thank you. And thank you for showing up and being here. I'm very honored.
Oh,
Do you have
thank you
any?
for acknowledging it. This has been sort of my life's work, seeing and I very much like what Orion has been saying. It seems like we need to be changed. Well, it isn't that we are changing, it is happening to us, that the idea of what it means to be gay or LGBT with all the letters is changing, and we're understanding the positive side of it all, the contributing side. That's, the topic today is the contribution that we make to evolution. The subtitle of my book was Gay Identity and the Transformation of Human Consciousness. I agree, we're changing what it means to be human. I think some of the things in my book, by the way, are still current. So I'll throw in a little ad. Please, not that long ago. And they're all still in print. But thank you so much, and thank you for letting me know about this. I'm glad to have been here. And Orion, thank you.
I'm so honored that you're here, and thank you for the work you did. You pioneers, what I call first thinkers. I'm down line in some of these this stream of thought and making my humble contributions in. But then we have pioneers such as yourself further back, digging into sometimes hard trenched soil, right, to turn that soil and let these awarenesses come up. So thank you so much. Thank you.
You.
Bless you. Thank you.
Any last questions? Orion, shall we do the Cloak of the Angels? A
Yes,
blessing?
yes. This is something I learned growing up. I grew up in a Southern Appalachian culture, and I learned this, from my mama. And we used to do this with children who were having nightmares, and there's all kinds of ways you use this. Now, the thing to keep in mind as we do this, we're on this wonderful planet Earth, traveling around the sun and along with these other planets, and we're finding out there's more planets out there. But we're not setting still, we're moving, and as we're moving through the cosmos and the starlight's passing through, and some of that starlight's becoming you. In fact, I got so fascinated by the fact that all iron is born from burnout stars. You know that, right? That's the only place iron comes from. Iron is created by stars that burn out. This is why I wrote, "We are stars with human feet, encountering starlight in all we meet. Know this, grow this, and ignite, and the stars will guide you through the darkest night." So as we're traveling through the cosmos together, as we are the stars looking back at themselves, there is a stream of light that's ever becoming you, and everything, right? And so when we reach up in this particular practice, it's called the Cloak of the Angels. And if you'll join me with this, open yourself up to the cosmic forces that became you, the ever arriving stream of light as we pass through the cosmos that falls and resurrects as all life, as you and me and everything. It is that garb of light, that ever arriving, that we open ourselves up to as we incant this simple prayer or charm. And if you would join me in just opening yourself to that light that's ever becoming you, and repeat after me. I call down the Cloak of the Angels. Your turn. Call down the Cloak of the Angels, and then bring that light down. Feel it arrive as the golden light, and wrap it around yourself. As we say, I call down the Cloak of the Angels, fall down as a waterfall of light, and wrap it around yourself, guiding, guarding, and blessing each one of us and our community and all who are awakening by day and by night. We are wrapped in the garb of the ever eternal arriving, the inspiriting force of the stars that become us. May it ever light your way. May it ever ignite the life that is within you. And may you ever blossom and become and become and become. Let this be written into the book of the law, that none may rend asunder, as it is, was, and ever shall be. Blessed be. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. And as we say in our tradition, may all the powers of love encompass you through all nights and all days and in all good ways. Thank you, Jan. I love you. Thank you, Unnamed Path folks. Give my love to everybody, will you?
Will do. Thank you so much for this.
Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you.